Welcome, my friends. Thank you for joining me. It is a beautiful wintry day where I am now. Let's do a bit of basic standing posture. Softening, letting go. Remember that the very first thing that we do is we stop doing whatever we were doing before. There's a very common mistranslation of the Tao Te Ching, this classic Taoist text that I've been translating and retranslating for, 6 or 7 years now. And it is commonly mistranslated into English as the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, which is pithy sounding and useful for a t-shirt or a bumper sticker. I've seen it in both places many times. And yet, if you look at the actual Chinese shiatsu, that it says that the journey of 1,000 li, of a long journey, begins under your feet. It begins where you are, not with what you do next. It starts here, now, and now. So take a moment to stop going into the future with what you're going to do next, or hanging on to the past with what you were doing before. That sense of mental inertia, your nervous system gearing up for this long journey, and instead be here, settling and softening into the present moment, under your feet. And as usual, if you are finding yourself here for the first time and you're not quite sure what's going on, welcome. You have jumped into the middle of a long series of videos. So this is a 100-day series of videos. This is somewhere in the first third or so, maybe toward the middle. And that by itself is part of a larger series. The beginning of our practice talks about the basics of Qigong. We define what Qigong is. We talk about how to engage your mind safely during Qigong practices, what to do with your breath, what not to do, which is very important, because the way that you approach these practices is just as important as the what and the how. So please do those classes first. They're all listed in order. They'll say 2B, 2C, that kind of thing. So you can go through them in order and come to understand how we do these things. And then over time, we slowly begin to instruct specifics, unraveling and opening the different pivots of the body. And the pivots that we are emphasizing during this 100-day series are the neck and the 2 shoulders. So please do watch those videos first so you know what in the heck I'm talking about. And for everybody else, of course, just another minute or so of basic standing position. There's a video for that too, by the way. Closing when you're ready. Softening and settling down. Your hands resting on top of your navel. Your awareness consolidating in the space beneath. Eventually, our awareness settles into that space between the navel and the spine, which in this system we call the middle dantian, the middle elixir field. So in my time, I just finished a long training retreat with Master Zhecheng at the monastery. Wonderful time, learned a lot, got to be thrown around a bunch, which is always really fun for me. And when I came back, I had, of course, a lot of emails and questions to answer. So I thought I would put some of them here, because a number of the questions came from people who were watching this series. And it seemed really appropriate that instead of just barreling forward with teaching you the next thing that I was going to work on, the 6 corners of the shoulder, instead it's perhaps useful to review a little bit and to answer some of your questions as we move through the practice. Let's begin by some gentle circles. Your awareness continuing to rest in that space between the navel and the spine. One of the questions, I have a list memorized that we can go through during the form. One of the questions is about if you cannot feel that space between your navel and your spine, where do you rest your awareness? And the answer to that is within the navel itself, your belly button. That's a good place to start. Eventually, that space between the navel, the mingmen, and the spine open up, and your awareness can move between. Your mind is able to move in places where qi is flowing. There's a relationship between the mind and the qi. That's not the best way to phrase it, but it's a good way to think about it. Mind, the qi flow, your body, this is all one expression, one flowing continuum. So as your body opens and your breath eases, your mind will more easily settle into these spaces in your body, including the very center, although it does take practice. But if you're here and now and you've been already spending a month doing this practice, it seems to be something that you already excel at. So, well done you. Hands resting on top of the navel, awareness sinking in beneath, coming to rest. Remember that stillness is not holding on to your mind and body. It's not freezing. Stillness, in this perspective, Qing, is the result of becoming completely disinhibited. Your movement is free. And like water, when it's free, it settles. It's only the stuck spaces that keep us from becoming still. So the more you can open and let go, the more naturally still and at rest you become, including with your awareness, with your mind. It comes to rest in that space between the navel and the spine effortlessly, without the need to hang on to it, because you learn to let go. And that, of course, is what we're practicing. Let's do a little bit of left and right, yin and yang. There's another question about this one. The question was about where the weight is resting. Where do you put the weight in your body? Which is a great question, and this is a perfect one to ask it about, so thank you. In the beginning, we're just trying to let go of the places that we feel the weight in the body. So if I feel weight in my neck and shoulders, it's because I'm hanging on to my neck and shoulders, and we just do our best to sort of let that go. You might feel the weight strongly in your lower back and your hips because you're hanging on to your lower back and your hips, and so the weight is piling up there. And so you work on letting that go, which of course takes time. Don't be in a rush. But the complete answer, the real answer, is that the weight is in the ground. Any place that we're feeling weightedness, gravity backing up into our body, is a place that we're hanging on, that we're tight, that things are not going through. When you are able to let go of your whole body, the weight drops through into the ground. You become stable and light because everything is free of that weight. Chanwan, Qingling, this sunken heavy, leads to this light, nimble, settling through. By through, it means all the way through into the ground. Letting go all the way until that sense of weight is gone from your body. So that even when you're standing on one leg, you're able to soften your body. It takes practice. Softening the sides of the neck. Lengthening. And then warming up the lower back a little bit. Up and down if you'd like. You can also warm the tailbone. It can be useful to move side to side just because that's part of the next practice. But softening and opening the glutes, the hips, the lower back. Keeping your shoulders soft. And then a little bit of snake softening its sides. A wave traveling up through the body. And while we practice this, I'll answer some of the next question. This is a good place to work on that. The question was about where do I move first, basically. Do I move my waist first? Do I move my feet first? And I think that the formulation of the question is a good question, but I want to change how you're thinking about it. The formulation itself is incorrect. And one of the most useful things I can do is help you change the way you're thinking about the movement. And so here, as I release, sure, the wave is traveling up from the ground through my spine out. But the first place the movement begins is the first place that I let go of. And again, I have a whole video, if you haven't watched it yet, about creating movement through release rather than through holding on. And so, as I've mentioned before, most people will do this practice by pulling down in some way or pushing off of their feet. And that was the way that your question was framed. And so instead, what we want to do is think about the places that we let go first. So as you practice this, let go of your waist, Let go of your feet and your legs. Eventually, once the dantian pivot is engaged, that will be part of the first movement, leading through the body. But in the meantime, here, soften your feet, soften your ankles, your hips, all the way up through, releasing along the side of your body, softening the side of your neck and your shoulder, allowing that movement to be generated through letting go, through making space. And of course, part of this answer is, what's the first place that actually moves? It's your intent. It's a quality of your mind. And that's a little bit more than we can talk about here in this moment. But we do want to have this quiet, what we call an intentless intent, iwi. So there's an awareness. You know what's going to happen, but you don't think about it. It's not that kind of intention. That moves, and then your system responds. But if that feels like a lot to consider, then at least start to shift your style of movement from a doing to a don'ting, from a clenching, contracting, to a release and expanding. And that will make a big difference. It's part of what we're cultivating in Qigong. It's an entirely different kind of movement through the body. Through the body. Through, not to. Softening the pelvis. All the way around. Letting go. Both directions. This one can be a bit difficult for people who are beginning to create movement through letting go, because it's a bit more subtle. But this next one is even easier. So as you circle, letting go of the space that you're falling into. So instead of squeezing on this side, fall into that space, falling all the way through the back, falling around the front. One of the reasons that I like to place my index knuckle here, the first knuckle of my fist, into this space just behind this bone, the greater trochanter, is because there's a collection of tissues that it's easy to squeeze through here. And you want to avoid that squeezing quality. So I put my hands here as a way to remind me to soften through, to let go into this area rather than to compress in the back, which is a habit that I've had. Both directions. And then softening all the way through, as though there's a little pivot here. You're moving through, aiming to soften the neck, but softening the entire thoracic spine. Shoulders easy. Lengthening along the entire side of the body. If you remember each of those sinew channels, you could find those areas that tend to be stuck for you and go slowly through that line to make sure that it opens all the way through. Both directions. It can be useful to roll up and start small again in the opposite direction, especially if your neck has been feeling a bit delicate. You know who you are. Be gentle, kind. That gentle quality is how your body will feel safe to let go. Your nervous system won't stop revving up if it doesn't feel safe. Looking down when you're ready. Again, emphasizing a softening of the base of the neck, the middle of the neck, and especially the top of the neck near the skull. You might start to feel that creaking open. Do it without closing your throat if possible. And then very gently rolling up. Take your time. Closing. Cultivating that moment of stillness. Eventually in the series, we will spend a lot of time cultivating the dantian, warming it up and making it powerful as an engine. But before we do that, in order to be safe, we have to open the body, open these 18 pivots that I talked about. We have to release the need to control with the mind. That quality of the mind we let go of, which of course brings a great deal of peace, but also it's really important before we start to do deep work inside the body, because if your mind is something that has sharp edges and is a bit chaotic and tight-fisted, iron-fisted, then all you do is you end up inviting that fist to roam around inside your body and inside your heart, and it can do damage because you're empowering whatever it is that's there. Whatever you already have, you get more of that. So if you have a lot of tension and stagnation, you build up a lot of chi doing these practices. They're very effective, but you just end up getting more of those things. So you want a body that's basically open and free, a heart that's generally at rest, and a mind that is at a basic level quieter before you start building up lots of chi. Otherwise, you just supercharge your emotions and your thoughts get wild. You don't want to do that. I've treated a lot of people that have done that. So be careful. Let's do a bit of shoulder release. Emphasizing the opening side, creating that movement through release. Both sides in both directions. So let go of your back, let go of your ribs, let go of the front, release the top. And always releasing lengthwise. Your neck is soft, your chest is easy. And again, for those of you that have already released your dantian pivot, then their dantian pivot can take part in these movements, both directions. Letting go, falling around the circle. Same thing with both shoulders. alternating, usually 9 times in both directions. And of course, as usual, if there's one side that needs extra attention, please do give it that extra love. Go slowly through the spaces that tend to require that extra bit of attentive gentleness. Continually releasing your neck. Shaking out just a little bit. The official Taiji dance, the wobble. And then closing. And just to explicate a little bit further this movement of the body, what comes first? We talked about movement of the mind, movement of the dantian. But because of our evolutionary structure, the first thing that often moves for us is the head and the neck. We tend to lead with our head by either compressing or pushing toward, and we want to adjust that habit, long-term habit, it comes way before we do, to soften and lengthen and release the neck. And so here on this next one, as we start, sure, there is a movement that travels this way. But first, before we push our head and pull our head, we want to release lengthwise and then go around the circle. Letting go around the circle. And then again, just for a moment, returning to basic posture. And there's going to be this waving motion that comes up through the body, letting go of the front of the body lengthwise. But before we begin, release the neck. Then let that movement come through and around. If you notice that you tend to tighten or perhaps pull down your head just before you begin a movement, then make that a special focus of your practice for a while. Releasing through the body. And then smaller and smaller. Closing. Let's release the neck a bit in preparation for black snake. Coming back to center, Again, first release lengthwise. Set the neck free, soften open the front of the shoulder, the front corner of the shoulder, looking up, over, back, and down. Releasing the front of your body without closing the back. And then looking down and then up and back. Letting go to create the movement. Make space rather than clenching in the back. Soften your jaw. Soften your eyes. Notice your breath. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Closing. So let's talk a little bit about another question which had to do with the breath. And I get this question a lot about when do I inhale, when do I exhale? And I think that this is a very important question to answer. So allow me to engage my tea in order to answer it. So let's say I move toward my tea, and it's a very fragrant tea. It is actually a very fragrant tea. It's wonderful. And so I come toward it, and I very naturally inhale, just to gather in that fragrance. I wouldn't, come toward a fragrant tea and exhale and not smell it. And in fact, actually, it increases the capacity to taste the tea, for those of you who are interested. To inhale and to aerate your tea in your mouth. I know that some of you don't like listening to those noises, so I won't do it more. But this is an idea that it's a natural response. There's a response to, I'm going to inhale now in association with experiencing my tea more appropriately. And the same is true with a lot of things that we do. There's a natural reaction that we're trying to capitalize upon. We want to return to naturalness rather than this constructed, contrived method of breath, method of thinking, method of moving our body. And so we undo those habits and become more natural, which of course is the Taoist ideal. And so here, let's practice a bit with this movement. So right now, as I lift my arms, hopefully your shoulders have learned to soften a bit rather than do this. What's the difference between this and this? I'm exaggerating. But one is opening and one is closing. And the very first thing we want to do is allow our breath to be able to move freely as our body opens and closes. And because our breath and our body want to unite, we want them to become one thing rather than separate things. The first thing we have to do is to stop trying to control the breath all the time. So if you notice first that you are somebody who holds your breath, either at the top or the bottom of the breath, the first habit to do is to stop habitually hanging onto your breath. The first thing to do is to break that habit. And so first, breathe. Very important. As long as you breathe, you'll survive. One secret to immortality is to keep breathing. The second you stop breathing, you'll die. There you are, the secrets of Taoism. And so this quality of letting go of the habit of holding the breath, that tendency to tense the mind so your body constricts and freezes, in general is something we want to get free of very quickly. Hopefully this practice is helping you with that. And then if you are past that point where you're no longer habitually freezing your breath, then the very next thing to do is to release control of your breath. Allow your breath to be natural. So don't think about, oh, I'm going to open my body, so I inhale, I exhale. That's not the same thing as them being one. You don't want to try to make them simultaneous. You want to make them one experience. And so the first thing to do with that is to stop controlling everything all the time. This is a general theme with our practices. You stop trying to control the mind all the time, to control the universe around you all the time, control your body, control your breath. We want to let go of all of that. And so the breath is a primary spot to practice that release. And we'll do other practices and videos that are better for that, especially once we go through the pivots of opening the chest, the belly, the back. It'll become easier to let go of the breath. But for now, because you asked, please don't hang on to the breath. Don't try to make them go at the same time. Instead, just notice how the breath likes to move as you open, as you close. What does the breath want to do? As you approach the T, notice the breath, but don't control it. Just notice. And that process of mindful, attentive softness is also part of what will heal your body and heal your breath. So it's all together. And again, to answer the question fully, eventually, once we open all the pivots, the body is more open, like I was talking about with the Dantian, then the breath itself is able to move freely through the whole body. The experience of the breath moves through the hands, through the feet, the whole body, and it's not a controlled or contrived breath. There will be 1,000 variations of the breath, depending on the kind of movement that we're doing. The breath itself becomes an expression of the movement. The body breathes for you, not with your idea of how the body should breathe. But to get to that point, that harmonization of the breath, the body, the mind, first we have to stop trying to control it all the time. So first step, breathe. Second step, let go of the breath. Third step, harmonize. So most of you will be somewhere in over here, no longer holding your breath, or over here, practicing not controlling the breath. This is very helpful. I hope that answers your question. Opening, notice your breath. Don't do anything about it. Elbows back, head back. Elbows back, head back. Lengthening vertically, lengthening horizontally. Opening that space behind your neck. Strengthening those postural muscles. And then softening down, releasing lengthwise. Letting go. And then we can do a bit of turning. Another person was asking about this movement. If I put my right hand on the back of my head and I gently push, it turns my head to the right. If I put my left hand on the back of my head, occipital lobe here, and gently apply pressure, softening my shoulder, it turns my head to the left. I could also use my other hand, my right hand on the back of my head. If If I pull gently by softening my shoulder, it gently turns my head to the left. Please remember that this is not a forceful thing. We're not trying to stretch the neck. We're just making it possible to turn a little bit further than normal. The tiniest amount of weight, just a light touch. Please be gentle. Turning your head from one side to the other. You should not feel as though you're running into anything. You're just opening. This movement also helps to unite the movement of the shoulders and the neck. And then releasing again. And then hands on the back of the head. Gentle pulling down. Gently looking up. Slight pressure. Stay in the realm of easy and effortless. One more time, lengthening down, and then releasing, falling around the circle. Letting go. Don't force your arms to lengthen. You cannot soften harder. Just let go. This, by the way, is a joke, not instruction. Do not try to soften harder. I'm learning that some jokes do not translate well into other languages on the internet, so I'm learning to make them less often. So from here, lengthening upward, palms turning down before the level of the chest, shoulders sinking, neck lengthening, pushing up. Top of the head follows the hands up, hands turn down, gently resting on top of the head. Gentle pressure downward, softening up, lengthening your spine. Lengthening, soften outward, around the circle. Palms forward, falling down along the sides of the body, and then as you reach the end, your elbows touching the side of your body, softening your forearms, your wrists, your hands, letting go. And then a bit of fun side-to-side movement. I was surprised to hear about how many of you are able to do this, and so that's wonderful. Keep it up. And shaking out a bit. From top down, closing. Jump forward a bit to the black snake. Whole body soft and open. One hand gently resting on the lower back in a comfortable ankle. You want to feel your shoulder blades soften down, your neck release, the hand supporting the back. And it's okay to leave it out if you're in too much pain to be able to do that. And then very gently supporting your head. Your hand gently helping the twist. Don't pull on your head. Your neck deserves a gentle touch. That's how it will release. It won't relax if you're harsh with it. Your body will be too busy protecting itself from you. Notice how your breath likes to shape itself as your body opens and twists and moves. What does it feel like? Don't control the breath, just watch. Softening all the way through to the ground. One more time. Closing. Mind growing soft and quiet inside, settling. There was a more difficult question to answer about non-dualism and Taoism in these Qigong practices. So the quick and incomplete answer is that yes, Taoist practice, Taoism is by definition a kind of non-dualist paradigm. The Tao itself is without duality. That's why that first line in the Tao Te Ching is Dao Ke Dao Fei Chang Dao, Ming Ke Ming Fei Chang Ming. It's this quality of the Tao being unable to be defined. You can't pin it down. You can't say it's any one thing. And that's the actual nature of the universe. And so all of our practices are about coming to see clearly and understand that quality of the universe that we are in, but not just to understand it intellectually, but to embody that quality. And so there's an aspect that we call the 6 harmonies in our practice, which we will explore at much later times. But it is about allowing all of these qualities of truth to be inhabited in us at once. The first steps to that are developing the ability to listen, to see clearly, without qualities of delusion or fogginess in our mind, without being caught up in strong emotions, without being overwhelmed by our own noise so much, our own feedback systems, that we can't notice the actual truth of what's around us. So we have to quiet the noise, to attune our system appropriately, to make an open space learning to listen is very important. And so as we continuously let go and let go, making space in our body, in our mind, our emotions become calm and clear. We become capable of noticing finer and finer qualities of truth, deeper and deeper meanings of our world. And then we begin to inhabit them, not just intellectually, but also physically, which is the practice that we're working on, a little bit at a time. That's where we're going, in part. And so, thank you for the question. I hope that helps. Let's do a little bit of preparation for white snake. Letting go, soft. Remember that the tendency is to pull down the head before we begin to do anything. So before we even start, we let go of this quality here and fall around the circle, falling around the circle. Opening. It's as though our forearms sink and our shoulder blades release down the back. Wrists cross. You fall down. It's as though you're bouncing a ball, so don't pull back. I see that happen a lot. People go like this. Instead, go down, and the pivot point, the hinge up here, will circle your arms around. Both sides. Letting everything go. Flowing up and down. One side then the other. Allowing your elbow to lift as long as your shoulder blade is able to sink. Your chest is able to rise and sink as well. But if your shoulder starts to come up, then you've gone too high. Eventually, your elbow can come all the way up, hinging with your shoulder being soft. Lengthening, sinking, stepping out. Circling, like you're embracing the tree. Palms turn out, pushing your palms outward, softening away from each other. Remember this softening long quality. Release your arms so that they fall outward toward the horizon. Don't push them apart from each other because that's just creating more shortening. Elbows a little higher than the shoulders if you can. Shoulder blades drape down the back like a cape, like a dramatic superhero cape. Notice your breath here. What does it feel like your breath is doing? It wants to do as your body opens and drapes and closes. Watch without controlling if you're able to. And then softening in when you're ready. Closing. Let's do a little bit of white snake. Same thing, the elbow lifts as high as it is comfortable without shoulder tension. Your chest opening and sinking. Your breath released and natural. The weight pouring through one leg, pouring through into the other. Into the ground. As much as you're able. Softening through. The various threads of your mind coalescing, consolidating in the center. Settling. Eventually your awareness rests, wakeful and clear, but not because you are concentrating and holding your mind like a squeezing muscle, because you let it go and it rests, it settles. So you're just in a quiet, restful, wakeful space without trying hard. With a friend of mine, I used to run a YouTube channel teaching Go, teaching a Wei Qi. It's a complicated board game, much like chess that people know. And I used to be exhausted from playing and my mind squeezing and trying to work through the various permutations of possibilities in the future. And I finally learned from a teacher that, oh, it's possible instead to soften your awareness. If you let it go, it just settles like a stone at the bottom of a pond. It just rests there. And you can intentionally just put your awareness here, including a problem, a very complicated problem. And you just let go. And your mind just gently works through these things without the part of your mind that needs to control everything working on it. You just observe your mind quietly working on it. And it is far less exhausting. And if you watch these Go champions, these athletes, usually from China or Korea or Japan, they are often exhausted. By the time they're in their 30s, just like they're playing high contact sports, their minds are exhausted. And they start losing their ability to play as well. Same with chess champions and such. And a lot of it has to do with, of course, natural aging of the mind, which happens, but it can be exhausting to control your mind that way. But it can be replenishing to allow your awareness to rest on a problem. And it works through it on its own. It does it on its own anyway. Your mind's always working on things in the background. And so learning to let your awareness rest here, you can then apply that knowledge, that new skill, to more complicated issues, whether it's playing a game or running through an equation. Just try letting your awareness rest without the part of you that needs to control everything being part of that. That might feel difficult at first, but knowing that it's a possibility means that some of you will be able to take that up or put it down and experience that shift. So it's highly recommended. Let's try a bit of golden snake. Wider stance. Softening your hips, let the weight fall out of your body. Remember to release your neck. Even before you step, you might notice that you shorten your neck. So before that step happens, first the weight falls out, like we practiced earlier, into the ground as best you can. Your breath is free, don't hold your breath. Let go of your neck so that your head is falling upward like we practiced. And then we lengthen, softening long. All of these things we're practicing. And now your body is open, grounded, consolidated, and you can step. Releasing. As you practice, you might notice problems with balance. And like I was mentioning earlier, we don't try to balance, we ground. We become stable because we sink through, and our body opens. But just as with playing a complicated board game or working through a difficult problem, if your mind becomes stable and grounded, it starts to become more effortless. To the extent that during this long retreat that I was on, I mentioned my teacher throwing me around, which is always a lot of fun for me. And he'll have me, this older man with a long white beard, he'll have me push my fist, for instance, as hard as I can into his lower back while he's standing or walking, one leg to the other. And, I'm pretty strong, and I can't move him. And he can actually throw me backward through his lower back or through his chest or through any part of his body. And it's not a special secret trick. It's not a super technique. It's the culmination of the ability to become very soft, to sink through to the ground. We become very stable, grounded emotionally and mentally, not just physically, because it's all one flow. So if you find yourself feeling unbalanced as you do these practices, don't counterbalance by adding tension in the opposite direction. Instead, let go. Sink through, literally becoming rooted, grounded. And then notice the change in how you feel. Again, not just physically, mentally, emotionally. That's the right direction. I'm trying to show how all of these questions that I were getting are really about the same thing. And the answer is the same. Don't. Let's do one more. Softening around the circle, letting go. Letting go. Softening the rib side, the waist, the hips. Across the body. Releasing all the way around. Pour the weight across into your leg, and then standing up. And softening down. We soften not because we push down, but because we let go of the neck, the shoulders, the chest, the waist. Everything coalescing, your mind settling like a stone to the bottom of the well. Don't force your mind to concentrate. Find a way to let go. Let go of the breath. You're just here. All of these practices, all of these techniques and methods, they're looking to make changes, to transform how our body-mind is functioning, to open for a better possibility. Let's do a little bit of free movement, as though you are at the bottom of the ocean, moving like seaweed forest, side to side, front to back. You know the drill. And again, since I'm discovering that many of you watch these videos through a translation device, if it ever seems that I'm saying something strange, it's possible that I'm just saying something strange, but you can also ask about it in the comment section, and I'm happy to try to use more simple language, perhaps easier for the translator to work through. Letting go. You can also let go this way. Softening, our palms turning forward as you release the front of the shoulder, the chest rises and sinks, softening the back of the shoulder, the palms turn in. Wrists are soft, elbows are letting go. Belly is released, lower back is relaxed. And of course, your neck releases long. Releases long. Make sure that your hips are settled back so that there's a space here in the front for you to fall through. The weight falls through one leg, falls through the other, unimpeded. And then we open. Opening up a hole in the sky, closing a hole in the earth. Your awareness opens outward, closing in. Spreading out, softening long. And then changing direction. Again, noticing how your breath responds to this opening or closing. Avoid controlling if you can. Just so it's a little easier to see. I know some of you are on small devices. Movement travels down. Closing when you're finished. Remember that last one, opening the sky, closing the earth, and opening the earth, closing the sky. Those are some of my favorites in the clinic to help people work through strong emotional issues. You don't want to do too much Qigong work while you're having strong emotional reactions. It's often better just to go for a walk. Gentle walking, not power walking, but just what they call scattered steps. I have a whole video about this, but for those of you who haven't watched it, because I know I have a lot of videos to watch, this ability just to walk and let your feet take you someplace. Sanbu, scattered steps. This ability just to walk effortlessly, wander, so that you're not controlling everything, but you are circulating your chi and letting things move. That's probably a better place to practice if you're having a strong mental emotional reaction. You just get back from road rage, or you heard something on the news, or had an argument with your spouse. Go for a walk before practicing Qigong or trying to sit and meditate. Otherwise, you tend to cement some of those patterns more deeply into your body. And it's better instead to practice in a calm, harmonized state as best you can. But after going for a walk or taking a nap, perhaps, one of the best practices to do is this one. And then closing with this one. General recommendation, if that's something that you suffer from. And of course, this does not replace actual therapy with professionals and people trying to help you. If you are having a difficult time, reach out to people, including friends and family. I know for some of you this is a real issue. I don't want to treat it lightly. If you need help, of course, always feel free to reach out in the comment section, not just to me, but the people here in this community. But if you have friends and family who can help, and if you have the opportunity to reach out to somebody who professionally does this, I can't give phone numbers here because this is a worldwide video medium, but please do reach out to people who can help. If you're having a really rough time, it's worth it. You are worth it. So if I make jokes and take strong emotions lightly, please forgive me. I know for some people it is not a lighthearted thing depending on when you are taking it. So please do reach out if you need help. We've all been through that at some point, and we know what it's like to offer a shoulder or an ear when it's needed. Let's do a little bit of hip and lower back release. Start with this neck opening without closing your throat. And then softening in the front, lengthening along the front, and then sink down the back, lengthening your spine, hips travel back, only as far down, of course, as feels comfortable, just as I've mentioned before. And of course, always being careful if your blood pressure or any abdominal compression issues are happening. Please be gentle. If you force your body, then your body won't open. That's why we don't add normal stretching to our practices. You just gently encourage, you soften open, and your body becomes flexible without pushing and pulling on it. I don't feel any stretch here. You shouldn't either if you can. If you start to feel a stretch, then you've gone too far. Just be gentle. And then a little bit of turtle drinking chi. Soften your back, release. Lengthen, only sink as far down as is comfortable. wait for things to equalize. Be gentle. I'll just keep saying it. So even here, my throat, my belly are not compressed. Just opening my back. That wave down, softening. One more time. Closing when you're ready. Your awareness settling inside, warming the middle. Shaking out again just a little bit if you need to. So this next one I thought would be particularly useful. I wanted to save a little extra time so we can talk about this. This sinking through the body that happens in the next movement is a very useful way of exploring the weight leaving your body, going into the ground. So let's do a variation on it, starting up the sides, pushing into the sky, and then palms turn in, elbows sink down. And what we're going to do is, it's as though a clear washing rainfall washes through you. Remember, there is a video called Turtle Standing in the Rain, I think, going through this. And you soften your neck, your face, your chest and shoulders, your belly, your hips. Everything is letting go. The weight that you were previously carrying up here, perhaps, is now falling through. Like this rainfall is washing through your body. The front, the back, the sides, the inside, the outside. And then by the time you're here, you've released your whole upper body. And then, softening your hips, your back, it washes down through your glutes, your thighs, past your knees, your shins, your feet into the ground. You're letting everything go. And then gently releasing, like a little foam ball, a Nerf ball that's been compressed and then expands again. That's what your body's doing. You're letting go. And then again, this variation coming up the side, lengthening up. Now, palms turn in, and it's so you're being washed through and around the body. The sky is falling through. And this is the space that people tend to have the most difficulty, letting go of their hips, their knees, their feet. Make sure that you're not rounding forward like this, please, or folding back. Instead, you're sinking through the legs, down through the feet, and only sink down as far as feels easy and effortless. If you notice that your hips and your thighs start to grip, then you've gone too far. And then once we are here, it's as though we gather up the earth. It flows up through our legs, from the tip of our tailbone up to our lower back, and from our lower back into the center. Middle Dantian again. So once more, softening through, and then I'll explain and answer one of the questions. Fresh, clear chi washing through, helping you let go of anything all the way down, through the feet. Don't hang on to anything. If you start to grip, you've gone too far. Deeper is not better. Through is better. And then here, as you stand up, what the tendency is for people to do is to press through your legs and press through your hips like you're doing a squat and trying to lift weight. And that is the wrong direction to take this practice. And so the simple way to describe it is, if I'm standing like this, so I have this level here, what takes more energy, this posture or this posture? What takes more energy, this posture or this posture, or this one? And so as I'm standing up, what people tend to do is they push harder and harder and harder as they're standing up, because that's how we know how to move. Instead, what we want to do is to soften. From here to here, we've now moved into an easier position. And from here to here, we've moved into an even easier position to stand. From here to here, it's even easier. Here to here, effortless. And so as you're opening, you want to do less and less effort. It's as though, like that squished foam ball that I'm describing, it just opens naturally. It's a release. And so as you do this movement, first becoming free, falling through. Clarity of the sky washing down into the ground. And then as you stand up, don't press your legs. I know that sounds strange, but release. You fall down through more. Let go of your legs, and that allows you to stand up. This is a process that can take a lot of practice, but the practice comes through being gentle and effortless, not trying really hard. We're trying to stop trying. We're not softening harder. Sink, and then gather and get out of the way, let go. And you allow that feeling of warmth to flow up the legs, through to the lower back, and into the middle. But if you clench your legs, you actually obstruct that flowing movement. And then closing. Hands resting inside. Awareness resting inside. So usually when I'm teaching something like this, about once a month or so, it's nice to go through and answer questions and review what we've learned a bit. Review, of course, is a big part of learning. And so feel free to ask more questions down below in the comment section. I'm sure you're not the only one. If I've confused you, I've probably confused everybody else. And I can continue to expound upon any idea that you need. These practices are ostensibly for the spine, for the health of the back, moving the joints, circulating the qi, are part of this larger arc of Qigong and internal transformations. Restoring the health of the mind and body is certainly a big part of what we're doing. It's plenty for most people, but there's a reason for the shapes and the directions that we're taking everything. It's an arc aiming towards something even greater and more valuable. But we begin with softening the shoulders, stopping holding the breath, let go of your jaw. For a lot of people, that's plenty. That's a lot. And so there's no rush. But this is the reason why we're choosing to express things in this way and not a different way, because they lead to greater possibilities. And I look forward to exploring them with you further down the road. Please make sure you do everything in order so that you're not skipping around and harming yourself. And I'll keep trying to answer your questions throughout as you ask them, but I might also save them up again for another one of these monthly revisiting of the practices. And your whole body release. Your mind grows quiet. Your breath is easy. Remember to make this closing practice your own. And as a reminder, if you need more of these possible movements and points to work on, one other 100-day series that we did was for this wonderful self-massage fascial release system. These movements are all from that set. And you want to find the practices that are most helpful for you. Everyone's body is different, needs different things at different times of the year. And so get good at knowing what you need, what's helpful to you. Put as many tools in your toolbox as you can. And then make your closing massage best suitable for you. Softening it through here. Tomorrow I will emphasize a return to exploring the 6 corners of the shoulder. This is the front corner here. Letting all of this open outward. Bottom of the shoulder. Top of the shoulder. If you have a friend nearby, you can work the back of the shoulder. And then the outer corner of the shoulder. Trying to hit the microphone here. But working that whole front corner. Bottom corner. corner is just a fun way to translate the Chinese. Soften the solar plexus, the rib side. Feels good. If you have trouble with circulation reaching your feet, of course, spend extra time doing this. Same with your hands. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow.